What happens when the man who once made your heart feel so much pain invites you to witness him begin a new life with someone else, but you arrive as the woman whose spirit he could never dim? Oma, why are you tearing up? Taejun whispered, watching his mother's gentle hands hold the elegant wedding invitation. Yoonji stood still in her Bizen apartment, staring at the cream-colored card delivered that morning. The graceful calligraphy, the luxurious paper, the familiar return name that made her heartbeat pause. Mr. Choi Min-ho and Miss Park Hae-won warmly invite you. After 12 years of silence, Min-ho was getting married. And somehow, unbelievably, he had chosen to invite her, the woman he once made feel unimportant. I'm not crying, sweetheart, Jia murmured, though her voice trembled softly. Oma is just remembering. Remembering what? Taejun's twin brother, Jaemin, stepped into the doorway, his thoughtful eyes so much like his father's filled with quiet worry. Jia looked at her sons, these bright 12-year-old boys who had given her strength in ways they never realized, and made a calm decision. How would you both like to attend a very special wedding with me? She asked gently. The kind where you'll wear tuxedos and meet many respected people. Taejun straightened with excitement. Whose wedding, Oma? Jia took a steady breath, feeling 12 years of growth, grace, and perseverance settle around her like a protective coat. Your father's wedding, she said softly, and I believe it's time he finally sees the beautiful life we created. The pregnancy test sat in Jia's trembling hands as she stared at the 2 pink lines that promised a new beginning. After 3 years of marriage and 2 years of hoping, she was finally carrying Min-ho's child. Her heart glowed with joy as she imagined his smile. She had prepared this surprise with such love. Min-ho's favorite galbi Jim gently simmering in the kitchen, special French sparkling drink from their honeymoon, candles glowing around their Houndy home with an ocean view. Rose petals formed a heart around his place setting, and she had wrapped tiny baby shoes to present beside the test. At 26, Jia still felt incredibly grateful to be married to Choi Min-ho. When they met at that charity gala 4 years earlier, she had been a university student working part-time at a convenience store in Seomayan. He was everything she never expected in her life: a Seoul National University graduate, a successful real estate developer, graceful and polished in his tailored suits. Their story had felt like a fairy tale. Fine restaurants in Kentum City, weekend trips to his family's Jeju villa, a breathtaking proposal at Gwangali Beach. Tonight, she would tell him they were becoming parents, and it would feel like the perfect chapter in their love story. The sound of Min-ho's key in the electronic lock made her heart flutter. Yobo, she called warmly, I have the most wonderful news to share with you. But the man who walked in didn't carry the warmth she expected. Min-ho's tall figure filled the entrance, his suit flawless despite the October rain, yet his expression made her pause. His eyes, once gentle when they looked at her, now felt distant and cool. Please pack your things, Jia. His voice was calm, steady. I'd like you to move out by tomorrow morning. The pregnancy test slipped from her fingers and tapped the marble floor softly. What did you say? Her voice barely reached the air. Min-ho stepped past the fallen test without noticing. You heard me clearly. This chapter has come to its end. I can't continue like this. Jia's knees felt weak. The glowing candles, the petals, the table set with love, everything suddenly felt delicate and out of place. Min-ho appa, please, she whispered gently. There is something special I need to tell you. There is nothing you could say that will change things, he replied, keeping his tone even. I've met someone who aligns better with my world. Someone who feels like a more fitting match. Every syllable felt carefully chosen. Jia placed her hand over her heart, steadying her breath as her chest tightened with emotion. Beneath you, she whispered. We're married. We took vows in front of your family. His laughter was sharp and cutting. Vows? To you? Min-ho began throwing clothes into expensive leather luggage. Jia, look at yourself. Really look. You come from nothing. Your family lives in a tiny apartment in Sahagu. Your father works at the shipyard. Your mother works in a factory. You barely graduated from a third-tier university. These were things he'd once claimed to love about her: her humble background, her authentic family, her down-to-earth nature. Now they were weapons. But you said you loved me exactly as I am, Jia whispered, tears streaming down her face. You said my family was warm and real. I lied. Minho's voice was flat. I thought maybe I could shape you into someone acceptable. But you can't transform someone like you into someone worthy of my world. Jia sank onto their bed, her heart shattering with each word. How can you say these things? She asked, her voice breaking. This isn't you. This is exactly who I am. He spun around, his face twisted with something that looked like resentment. I'm being honest for the first time. You want to know what's truly painful? Being trapped with someone who will never be good enough. Summoning every ounce of courage she had left, Jia picked up the pregnancy test from the floor with shaking hands. I'm pregnant, Minho, she whispered. We're going to have a baby. Minho stopped packing. For one brief, desperate moment, Jia thought she saw something flicker in his eyes. But when he spoke, his voice was even colder than before. Not my concern. The words hit her like a physical blow. What do you mean? This is your child, our child. My child? Minho's laugh was vicious. With you? I seriously doubt it's even mine. You probably got pregnant by some guy from your old neighborhood. The accusation was so shocking that Jia couldn't even respond. But even if it is mine, Minho continued, zipping his suitcase. I don't want it. I don't want any reminder of the biggest mistake I ever made marrying you. Jia doubled over, her free hand moving instinctively to protect her still flat belly. Please, she whispered through her tears. Please don't do this. I love you so much, your love means nothing to me. Minho grabbed his suitcase and headed for the door. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. Don't even think about trying to reach me. You're nothing to me now, Jia. You always were nothing. And you always will be nothing. The door slammed shut with such force that their wedding photo fell from the wall, glass shattering across the floor. Jia collapsed beside the broken frame, clutching the pregnancy test to her chest as sobs racked her body. Outside, thunder rolled across Bizen's skyline and rain grew heavier. The candles still flickered on the dining table. The heart made of rose petals remained untouched. The Galbi gym continued simmering, a mocking reminder of dreams that had just been destroyed. As Jia knelt among the shattered glass, holding the proof of new life in her hands, she had no idea that this moment of complete devastation would become the foundation for a transformation that would make Minho's words the biggest mistake of his life. 4 months later, Sahagu, Bizen Jia stood in front of the cracked mirror in her tiny studio apartment's bathroom, hardly recognizing the woman staring back. Dark circles ringed her once bright eyes. Her maternity clothes, mostly hand-me-downs from her older sister Eugene, hung loosely on her frame. Despite carrying a baby, she'd actually lost weight because food had become a luxury she couldn't always afford. The apartment was worlds away from the houndy penthouse she'd shared with Minho. Located in one of Bizen's less affluent neighborhoods, where the buildings were old and the streets narrow, it was all she could afford on her wages from 3 part-time jobs. The single room served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen, a tiny hot plate on a folding table, a mattress on the floor. Minho's divorce had been swift and merciless. His team of expensive lawyers had proven she wasn't entitled to any shared assets. Everything had been in Minho's name. She'd walked away from 3 years of marriage with a single suitcase and a heart full of shattered dreams. Jia pressed her hand to her rounded belly, feeling the baby move inside her. At 6 months pregnant, she was working as many hours as her body could handle, cleaning offices from midnight to a.m., waitressing at a Samgyeopsal restaurant during lunch hours, doing alterations for a seamstress in the evenings. The work was exhausting, but the combined income barely covered her 500,000 won monthly rent and the cheapest groceries from the local market. I'm sorry, little one, she whispered to her unborn child. I know this isn't the life I promised you, but I'm going to do better. Somehow, a sharp knock interrupted her quiet moment. Jia knew that knock, Mrs. Kim, her landlord, and she was 4 days late on rent. Yoonjia, the elderly woman's voice was harsh through the thin door. I know you're in there. Jia took a deep breath and opened the door, trying to summon a smile. Kimijama, I was just about to come see you. I'll have the rest of the rent by Friday. I promise. The landlord's eyes narrowed. You said that last month, girl. I'm running a business here, not a charity for unwed mothers. I'm not unwed, I'm divorced, Jia said quietly. And please, just until Friday, then you're out, Mrs. Kim cut her off. Next time, Think twice before getting yourself pregnant by some man who won't stick around. After the landlord left, Gia sank onto her mattress and buried her face in her hands. She'd already called her family for help. Eugene sent what little money she could spare from her job as a hotel housekeeper. But Uni had 3 children of her own. Their mother, who worked double shifts at a textile factory, had already given Gia her entire savings, 300,000 won. Gia's stomach growled, reminding her that she'd skipped breakfast to save money. She opened her nearly empty refrigerator and pulled out a container of rice and kimchi, the cheapest meal that still provided some nutrition for the baby. As she heated it on the hot plate, tears began to fall. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. She should be in a beautiful nursery right now, surrounded by love and excitement. Instead, she was alone, struggling, and terrified. Gia was scrubbing floors at the Kentum City office complex when the first contraction hit her like lightning. She was in the executive washroom on the 20th floor, alone except for her own labored breathing. "Ania," she whispered, panic rising as another contraction gripped her. "Please. Not yet. It's too early." She was only 34 weeks pregnant. The baby wasn't supposed to come for another month and a half. But the contractions kept coming, faster and stronger. Gia managed to call Eugene from the office phone, her voice shaking. "Uni, something's wrong. The baby's coming and I'm at work. Stay exactly where you are." "Gia, yeah." Eugene's voice was fierce. "I'm calling an ambulance and coming to get you right now." The paramedics found Gia collapsed in the hallway, clutching her belly. "How far along are you?" the EMT asked as they lifted her onto a gurney. 34 weeks, Gia gasped. "But there's something else, I think. I think there might be 2 babies." The ride to Bison County Hospital was a blur of sirens and pain. Eugene met them at the emergency room, her face pale as she ran alongside Gia's gurney. "The babies!" Gia gasped, reaching for her sister's hand. "Uni, what if something's wrong with them?" "They're going to be fine," Eugene said firmly, though Gia could see the fear in her eyes. "You're going to be fine. We're going to get through this together." The emergency room was chaotic. Patients on gurneys lining the hallways, families crying, nurses rushing between rooms. It took Eugene arguing with 3 different staff members before they finally took Gia back to a delivery room. "Twins," confirmed Dr. Lee, a tired-looking resident. "And they're coming whether we're ready or not." Gia wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Ready? She had no insurance, no money for hospital bills, no nursery waiting. She had nothing except fierce love for these babies she hadn't even met. But as the next contraction hit, she realized that preparation was a luxury she couldn't afford. Ready or not, her children were coming into the world tonight. 14 hours later, at 3:47 a.m. on a cold February morning, Choi Tae-jun entered the world screaming at the top of his lungs, as if announcing his intention to fight for everything life had to offer. 2 minutes later, his brother Jae-min followed more quietly, but Gia could see the same determination in his dark eyes. "They're beautiful." "Gia, yeah," Eugene whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Look at them. They're perfect." Gia held her sons for the first time, one in each arm, and felt something shift deep inside her chest. They were so small. Tae-jun barely 2.3 kilograms. Jae-min just over 2. But they were fighters. Tae-jun had Min-ho's strong jaw and commanding presence even as a newborn. Jae-min had inherited Gia's gentler features but with unmistakable strength in his tiny grip. "I'm sorry," she whispered to them as they slept in her arms. "I'm sorry I can't give you everything you deserve right now. But I promise you this, I will never give up. I will never stop fighting for you. You deserve so much more than this. And somehow, some way, I'm going to make sure you get it." Eugene squeezed Gia's shoulder gently. "What are you going to do about Min-ho? Those are his sons." He should know. Gia's voice was firm despite her exhaustion. "He made his choice when he called me worthless and walked away. These beautiful boys are not worthless, and they don't need an appa who would see them as burdens instead of blessings. But the money, Gia, you can't raise 2 babies alone." Gia looked down at Tae-jun and Jae-min, both sleeping peacefully despite being born into poverty. "I won't be alone, Uni. I have them. And they have me. We're a family now. That's what matters." The reality of caring for twin newborns in a studio apartment was overwhelming beyond anything Gia had imagined. The babies cried in shifts, ensuring she never got more than an hour of sleep. Her body ached from childbirth, but she couldn't afford time off work. She was back to cleaning offices within a week, strapping the twins to her chest in second-hand baby carriers. One particularly brutal night, when both babies had been crying for 3 straight hours and Gia hadn't slept in 36 hours, she found herself sobbing right along with them. She was sitting on the floor at a baby in each arm, wondering if she was strong enough for this impossible task. That's when she looked down at Tae-jun, who had suddenly stopped crying and was staring up at her with those serious dark eyes that seemed far too wise for a newborn. Something in his gaze seemed to communicate directly with her heart. "We're counting on you, Oma. Don't give up on us." "You're right," she whispered to him, then looked at Jaemin, who was also watching her intently. "You're both right. I can't fall apart. You two are the best things that ever happened to me, and I'm going to prove to the world and to myself that we don't need anybody else." She wiped her tears and stood up, settling both boys in the crib Eugene had found at a yard sale. "Starting tomorrow, we begin again. I don't know how yet, but I promise you both your Oma is going to be somebody, and you're going to grow up knowing that you can be anything you want to be, no matter where you come from." As if they understood, both babies settled down and fell asleep. Gia stood over their crib for a long time, watching them breathe, and felt something she hadn't experienced since the night Min-ho left her. Hope. It was just a tiny spark, barely alive after months of despair. But it was there, growing stronger as she watched her son sleep. "Choi Min-ho," she whispered into the darkness, "wherever you are with your perfect new life, you have no idea what you threw away. But someday I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that these boys and I are worth more than you ever imagined." Outside her window, the first hints of dawn were beginning to touch Bizen's skyline. Gia sat down in the broken recliner Eugene had found for her and closed her eyes for a few minutes of rest. She didn't know it yet, but this was the night everything quietly began to shift. This was the night Yoon Gia stopped feeling small and started becoming the woman who would one day gently remind Choi Min-ho of the meaning of true choice. Gia wiped flour from her hands and glanced at the kitchen clock. 4:30 a.m. In the small bedroom of their rented 2-bedroom apartment, she could see Tae-jun and Jaemin resting peacefully, surrounded by the warm scent of tteokbokki, japchae, and yakgwa prepared for the Lee family reunion later that day. The kitchen counter was filled with aluminum containers, 50 portions of tteokbokki, 5 kilograms of japchae, 3 dozen gimbap rolls, and 10 boxes of traditional cookies. This single catering order would bring in 800,000 won more than she used to earn in a month during those early, difficult times. What began as an effort to simply keep moving forward had grown into something new. During the twins' first year, while Gia was working 3 jobs, she began making extra portions of her grandmother's recipes and sharing them with co-workers. Her supervisor at the cleaning company, Mrs. Park, had been the first to pay her 20,000 won for a tray of homemade mandu. "Gia, these taste even better than my mother's," Mrs. Park had said. "Can you make them for my daughter's first birthday party?" That celebration, 30 guests, 150,000 won total payment became Gia's first real catering job. Word spread quickly through the local community. Within 6 months, she was getting weekend calls, and within a year, she had saved enough to leave 2 of her 3 jobs and focus on her small business, Gia's Kitchen. Now, at 28, Gia had clients booked months in advance. She'd obtained her business license, built strong relationships with suppliers at Bizen's Jagalchi market, and even hired 2 part-time helpers for large events. Most importantly, she'd moved her twins to a cozy neighborhood where they could play freely. "Oma, it smells like Halmioni's house," Tae-jun said, appearing in the kitchen doorway with messy hair. At 5 years old, he already showed signs of natural leadership, always the first awake, always watching over his brother. "Good morning, my dear. Did we wake you up?" "Jaemin is still sleeping, but I wanted to help." He climbed onto his small stool and began placing napkins neatly in the boxes. Even at 5, he understood that this work mattered. It was how they built their life together. The journey hadn't been easy. It took long days, learning business skills through free community classes, and more fatigue than Gia had ever known. But every moment had been worth it to see her sons happy and thriving. Jaemin appeared quietly in the doorway. "Oma, are we rich now?" Gia smiled. "We're not rich, sweetheart, But we're safe. We have enough, and more importantly, we have each other. Mrs. Park at daycare says you're an entrepreneur, Jaemin said seriously. That means someone who builds something, right? Like a boss? Taejun asked, eyes shining. Exactly like a boss, Gia replied warmly. Your Oma runs her own company now. Later that morning, after delivering the Lee family order, Gia drove her used Hyundai to meet Kim Sun-hee, who wanted to hire her for what could be her biggest project yet, a wedding for 200 guests with a budget of 5 million won. The Kim family lived in Marine City, the elegant neighborhood where Gia had once lived with Min Ho. As she parked in the circular driveway, her heart fluttered gently. These meetings with high-end clients still reminded her of a life she had once known. But Gia was different now. She wore her best suit, not fancy, but clean and neat, and carried herself with quiet confidence, the kind earned through resilience. Yoon-si, please come in, Mrs. Kim greeted kindly. I've heard wonderful things about your food. They sat in a spacious living room, discussing menu ideas and plans. Gia spoke with calm professionalism, never uneasy, always respectful. Your references are exceptional, Mrs. Kim said, reviewing Gia's portfolio. The Park anniversary party, the Choi Dolyanchi. The photos of your food are absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Ajama. I take pride in both taste and presentation. Every event reflects the family's personality and traditions. Mrs. Kim smiled warmly. I have to ask, how did you get started? You seem so young to have built such a reputation. Gia had prepared for this question. I started cooking out of necessity when my sons were babies. I'm a single mother, and I needed to find a way to support them while staying home. What began as survival became passion. Single mother? How old are your children? Twin boys, 5 years old. They're the reason I work so hard. I want them to have opportunities I didn't have. Mrs. Kim's expression softened. That's truly admirable. Building a business while raising twins alone, that takes incredible strength. Strength. Gia had heard that word so often now, but it still felt strange. She didn't feel strong most days. She felt tired, worried, constantly pushing herself. But maybe that was what strength actually looked like, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear stop you. Can you handle an event this size? Mrs. Kim asked. 200 guests is quite ambitious. Absolutely. Gia's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. I work with a network of trusted assistants for larger events, and I can provide references from similar occasions. This contract would change everything. The deposit alone would let her put a down payment on a better apartment. Wonderful. I'd like to book you for June 15th. As Gia drove home with the signed contract, her mind raced with possibilities. This success would lead to more referrals, bigger events, maybe even the opportunity to open an actual restaurant someday. But more than business growth, she felt something deeper. Vindication. Min Ho had called her worthless. He'd said she came from nothing and would always be nothing. But tonight she would go home to her sons in their safe apartment with a contract that would earn her more in one weekend than Min Ho had ever given her in monthly allowances. That evening, after Taejun and Jaemin were asleep, Gia sat at her kitchen table with her business accounting spread before her. In 5 years, she'd gone from 3 part-time jobs that barely paid rent to a business that was booked solid through the summer. Her credit score had improved enough to qualify for a small business loan. She was even taking business classes at the community center on Saturday mornings. The phone rang, interrupting her calculations. Yoon-si, it's Kim Sun-mi from Bizen International School. Gia's heart leapt. Miss Kim was the admissions counselor at the private school. She'd been dreaming of sending Taejun and Jaemin to the same school where wealthy families send their children for the best education. I have good news, Miss Kim continued. We've reviewed your application for financial aid, and we can offer Taejun and Jaemin partial scholarships for the fall semester. Combined with your contribution, we can make this work. Gia's eyes filled with tears. She'd been working toward this goal for 2 years, saving every extra penny. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. After hanging up, Gia walked to the boys' bedroom and stood in the doorway watching them sleep. Taejun was sprawled across his bed with characteristic confidence, while Jaemin curled up neatly under his covers, clutching his favorite stuffed penguin. Bizen International School, she whispered to them. You're going to get the best education, and you're going to have every opportunity to succeed. She thought about Min-ho, probably sleeping in some expensive bed in Seoul, never knowing that he had two brilliant sons who were about to attend one of Bisan's most prestigious schools. Never knowing that the woman he'd called worthless was building something beautiful from the ground up. The irony wasn't lost on her. Min-ho had married her when she was young and uncertain, then discarded her when she needed him most. But his cruelty had forced her to discover strength she'd never known she possessed.